Picture this. Two people are standing in the exact same moment, but they're living in two completely different times. Not on a clock, not on a calendar, in consciousness. One of them is still inside the beginning. Everything is first time, raw, immediate. Life is happening to them in a straight line. Now, then, next. The other has already stepped forward, past the threshold where the world stops feeling like a single hallway and starts feeling like a whole building, with rooms you didn't even know existed. And here's the strangest part. The one who stepped forward can still see what the first person sees. They remember it perfectly. They can feel the weight of that beginning, the certainty of it. They can even predict the moves that version 1 will make, because they used to move that way too. But they can't simply hand them the new way of seeing, not because they don't want to, because it doesn't work like that. This isn't just poetic. It's baked into how philosophers and researchers describe time and awareness. The philosophy of time has long wrestled with a brutal question. Is only the present real, what's called presentism? Or are all moments equally real, like pages in a book that already exists, what some call eternalism? Different people don't just hold different opinions about that. They often live as if different models are true. And that's why two people can share the same day, the same house, even the same conversation, and still feel like they're worlds apart. Because time, in human experience, isn't only a sequence, it's a perception. One person is perceiving time through immediate sensory reality, what is happening right now, what it means right now. The other is also processing it conceptually, patterns, echoes, causes, consequences. Philosophers describe this as the split between perceptual spacetime and conceptual spacetime, what you see and feel versus what you understand and can map. So when someone moves forward, it's not that they become better, it's that they become different. They start living in two layers at once. One, the layer where life is happening, and two, the layer where life is being understood. That's the leap. That's the shift from 1 to 2. And you can't fake it. Here's the metaphor. 1 can't become 2 by pretending. 1 can't become 2 just by copying the surface of 2. Because 2 isn't a costume. It's a structure. It's what happens when 1 adds 1, when experience meets reflection, when the moment meets meaning. But until 1 actually does that work, 2's world is invisible. This is where the mind-body conversation gets intense. René Descartes famously argued for mind-body dualism, the idea that the mind isn't the same kind of stuff as the body, that consciousness is not purely physical. Whether you agree or not, the insight is powerful for this. It helps explain why two people can stand in the same physical reality and still inhabit different inner realities. Same room, same second, different time. So the person who has stepped forward, call them 2, becomes the strangest kind of witness. They can still understand one's viewpoint. They can still translate one's fears, one's logic, one's limits. But they can't drag 1 across the line, because that would break the math. You can't skip from 1 to 2 without becoming 2. You can't jump to the next phase just because you heard someone describe it. If you try, it feels wrong, like wearing a title you haven't earned, or speaking a language you can't actually think in yet. It collapses. It becomes performance. And performance doesn't transform you. Transformation does. And here's the part most people don't want to hear. Once you become 2, you can't go back to being 1. Not fully. You can revisit the beginning. You can empathize with it. You can remember it with tenderness. But you can't unsee what you've seen. Because once your mind has learned to hold multiple realities at once, perceptual and conceptual, present and pattern, you can't pretend the world is only a straight line again. That's why people feel lonely during growth. Not because they're arrogant, because they're early. They've stepped into a wider frame, and they're still learning how to live there. But this is also the opportunity. 2's job is not to force 1 to see what 2 sees. 2's job is to become proof that it's possible. To speak in a way that makes curiosity flare. To live in a way that makes the beginning feel less like a prison and more like a doorway. Because 1 isn't broken. 1 is simply at the start. And the start has a sacred role. To learn enough about itself to reshape. So if you feel like you're living in a different time than the people around you, if you can still understand them, but you can't make them understand you, don't panic. You might not be crazy. you might be early. And if you're still at the beginning, wondering why some people seem to see something you can't yet touch, don't dismiss it. Don't worship it either. Just do the real work. Add the next layer. Reflect. Question. Notice patterns. Let experience become meaning. Because the moment you step forward, you won't just see the beginning. You'll finally understand why it had to be first. If this hit you, if you felt this split in your own life, then take the next step. Share this with someone who's living in a different time than you, and start the conversation. Not to win, not to prove, to build the bridge. Because the shift from 1 to 2 doesn't happen by force. It happens when you're ready to see.